Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulullah. Welcome to Islamic Finance Podcast, episode 5, season 1. With me, Almi Cholan, your host, and we are also joined by Maryam. Maryam, how are you doing? How's everything?
Yeah, good.
Today we are continuing our discussion. This whole season is a little bit introduction to some Islamic finance and economic principles. And as it is our custom, I hope you have your coffee or tea ready and you will join us for simultaneous sip. What are you drinking?
Green tea.
Green tea, that's very good. I'm drinking coffee. I have also tea for later on. But for now, Bismillah, let's do that. Bismillah. Beautiful coffee. How's the green tea?
The best.
The best, huh? All right, okay. This coffee, not bad. It was a quick coffee, but very, very good taste. I've been listening some interesting things in the news. Mm-hmm. What's happening in the world of politics, and always politics and economy, they sort of intersect. And this last week news was dominated by what's happening in US in terms of Supreme Court nomination. Without going into politics, what was interesting is that one of the big corporations was backing the candidate that president was proposing. And the reason why they were backing her was that she is aligning herself, or let's say her philosophy is more closely aligned to what they believe. And that is that minimum government interference and usual things that we hear in corporations that are sort of in favor of unrestricted free economy and so on. So what is interesting, I had a look a little bit about this huge corporation, hundreds of billions worth, run by two brothers who are very politically active. I found that going back for many decades, they were running different lobby groups to influence the government, different activist groups, and many education and similar initiatives. And also from around 70s, they talked about strategy, where they will strategically place judges in a court and then be able to build like a precedent for their decisions. So in US, you have sort of power is, let's say, distributed to different sides. One of them is president, one is what they call it Congress, and judiciary court. So they sort of balance each other. And they do that in order to avoid having like a king who rules everything and totalitarian society. But what is interesting is that you find yourself in a situation where the corporation could amass so much wealth that they could move entire government. They could not only pick the candidate, support the candidate for, let's say, president or a party, they could also influence judiciary and the policies and the makeup of the court. And therefore, you almost see this situation where the corporation could have so much power. So that was for me very interesting because often those who talk about less government interference and the rules and regulations, they are able not only to level field for themselves, but make it very difficult for anybody else to be on that so-called level playing field. And that creates sort of interesting dynamic. So that's just something I noticed in the news, which I thought is quite interesting because today I want to talk a little bit about that sort of hybrid capitalist system where you can find competing powers between the large government and large corporation and how it works out for the people. How does that sound to you?
Feels like the governments are getting too big and the corporations, instead of fighting it, now they're using it to their advantage.
That's right. They are now using that as a leverage for their own interest. And that's where the situation gets really dangerous. When we had global financial crisis We had the Mufti Taqi Usmani address Davos conference where they collect all of these business leaders from the world to talk about different things. And he gave a speech which is very interesting. He said that in modern economics, we are used to purely materialistic and secular approach that does not allow religious concepts to interfere with its theories and concepts, on the premise that economy is outside the domain of religion. It is, however, an intriguing irony that every dollar note has the admission, "In God we trust." But when it comes to developing theories to earn dollars or to distribute or spend them, trust is placed only on human ideas based on personal assessment. God is held totally out of picture as being irrelevant to economic activities. And this is the similar story that we mentioned when we talked about people of Schweib. Pope also, 2 weeks ago, put out a letter, Fratelli Tutti. Occasionally he writes they call it an encyclical letter, where he addressed certain issues. And he was criticized for some part of it, where it sounded more like socialist sort of approach. But since I already talked about issue with socialism and some incentives that don't make sense, I will talk about some of the points that I think are very useful as we talk today about what I call a zero-sum capitalism. So he said in this letter that the marketplace by itself cannot resolve every problem. However, much we are asked to believe this dogma of neoliberal faith. Whatever the challenge, this impoverished and repetitive school of thought always offers the same recipe. So first of all, he's using a couple of terms here. One is neoliberalism, and Investopedia defines it as a school of thought that prescribes a minimum amount of government interference into economic issues of individuals and society. Criticism of this school of thought is that it usually increases inequality and financial stability. Now, this is usually easy accusation and often does not ask question like compared to what and at what cost. What freedoms are lost in order to rebalance that. So, but that's again, some of it we discussed last time, and maybe in the future we'll revisit that topic. But what the problem is here, one of the professors, Alan Finlayson, he talks about this. In practice, neoliberalism favors a set of mechanisms with which we are all familiar in order to achieve this aim, such as privatization of public utilities and deregulation of financial markets. In effect, it has favored a policy agenda which has vastly increased the power and prestige of financial capital, so banks, hedge funds, lenders in general, at the expense of everyone else, manufacturers, consumers, workers, borrowers. It is debatable how far this favoring of finance capital over industry capital is built into a neoliberal theory. So just to comment on that, this favoring of financial institutions and what they do, and also how we treat the real economy and the work. So that will be an interesting point for us to see whether that makes sense, what he's saying. So Pope continues in this letter that financial speculation fundamentally aimed at quick profit continue to wreak havoc. So he says, indeed, without internal forms of solidarity and mutual trust, the markets cannot completely fulfill its proper economic function. And today this trust has ceased to exist. He talks about trust and solidarity and mutual trust, but there is something that is undermining these markets from fulfilling that role that they should play. And then he puts another final thought that I will quote here, is that he said that I would once more observe that the financial crisis of 2007 and 2008 provided an opportunity to develop a new economy, more attentive to ethical principles. Again, more attentive to ethical principles, but what principles are these? Is it just solidarity? Is it just being nice? Which is, we said before, very important component. But what about restrictions? What restrictions should we have in order to remove those incentives that drive certain human behaviors? Because economic system is about incentives in the system. It's not just wishful thinking. Let's have equality and prosperity for everybody. It's not going to work like that. You need to have a rules system and incentives. He says more attentive to ethical principles and new ways of regulating speculative financial practices and virtual wealth. But the response to the crisis did not include rethinking the outdated criteria which continue to rule the world. Very little is identified. What are we supposed to rethink? And I agree, that's true. Speculation, financial practices that underpin our markets and economy are causing huge havoc. But what specifically are we talking about? Last week we talked about some of the communist countries, and we gave some of the examples regarding impact of economic incentives. What are some of the lessons that you remember that might be relevant for us to continue on today?
It's just interesting, I think, because we were talking about China and how it moved from a complete communist society because it was failing to, I guess, reach the needs of its people. And then when it kind of became this hybrid between the two, it prospered and it's continuing to prosper. But there needs to be some changes, obviously, for them to keep prospering, because it's easy for a country to prosper when it's almost at zero. So it's easy to go from 0 to 80, 90, but then getting from that 90 to 100, it's going to be more difficult for them.
So we said that they were having economy didn't really work in terms of incentives. Once they figured out certain incentives to a certain degree, it unleashed the huge growth. And that happened in many other countries like India and Russia. Now we said why, particularly the capitalism and the other Western countries that are built on the production and unleashing human innovation and energy are really prospering because incentives drive them where they grow this real economy. So just like in communism, this centralized government reach how they can effectively manage economy and decisions become very bad for future growth. The capitalism reached that same phase when these incentives start running wild. If these free markets and free incentives to grow and so on could continue to focus people on doing profit from the real work and from creating the benefit, that would be wonderful. Engaging people, win-win for everybody. Who would complain about the capitalism? But where capitalism grows, these incentives start pushing capitalism as it increases appetite to start creating benefit from things that the world cannot deliver anymore. So once you see how much growth can we deliver if you grow food, if you are a farmer, if you are a baker, if you are running the factory manufacturing. Once your appetite goes towards, let's say, financial engineering side and riba and other things that we'll talk about, and you can manage extremely high growth, then all the best minds and incentives drives you toward that sides of things. Which is why, for example, now, these days, you can make more money by financing things than by making things these days. If you are a bank, you can make more money by giving loans to bakers and other people and moving money around small businesses than actually being involved in those small businesses. Intuitively, that doesn't make sense. The guy who risks everything, opened the bakery, he wakes up 3 o'clock in the morning to prepare the things you need to make a bread so you can eat it at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then works whole day in the very hot room, oven, risking everything. He makes much less money than a banker who's just moving money around between that neighborhood. And that's something wrong there. So this is where we start seeing decoupling from real economy. What I can make money from, it's not anymore the real things. Now I start finding ways in financial or fictional economy where almost like in a sort of synthetic way, I can make that much more money. Okay, let's see how that works. So we said that a real core of capitalist impulse that it harnessed is this incentive and freedom. Freedom and opportunity to make money, more and more. And then they said we want zero rules and constraints. But there is a question that no one is sort of answering. You want freedom to make more and more and more. But from what exactly? Nobody asking them, from what exactly are you making more and more? Okay, we'll give you freedom and everything, but what are you doing? Are you saying you need less restrictions so you can make stuff and things that will benefit us more? Be good for all of us? If that's what you are asking, there's no problem. Who will complain about that? But these restrictions that you want reduce, they open the door where you can make money from our losses, from harming us as a society. Here's one of these traders who is talking about some of his financial strategies during the recession. I think this was about 10 years ago. And he is going to say a few things about markets and recovery and what he's doing to profit that will shock some of the people at BBC who are doing the interview.
Because markets are ruled right now by fear. Investors and the big money, the smart money. I'm talking about the big funds, the hedge funds, the institutions. They don't buy this rescue plan. They basically, they know the market is toast. They know the stock market is finished. The euro, as far as they're concerned, they don't really care. They're moving their money away to safer assets, like treasury bonds, 30-year bonds, and the US dollar. So it's not going to work.
We keep hearing.
So he's talking about, if I remember correctly, this was a debt crisis in Europe. That was after the global financial crisis. So he's there to sort of give advice.
That whatever the politicians are suggesting, and admittedly it's all been rather woolly so far, isn't right. Can you pin down exactly what would keep investors happy, make them feel more...
She's asking him, what will fix this situation? Totally reasonable question. All right, let's see what he's saying.
That's a tough one. Personally, it doesn't matter. See, I'm a trader. I don't really care about that kind of stuff.
She's asking him, what can we do to fix economy that is going down? All of the stimulus and everything. And he's saying, I'm a trader. I don't care about that kind of thing.
If I see an opportunity to make money, I go with that. So for most traders, it's not about... we don't really care that much how they're going to fix the economy, how they're going to fix the whole situation. Our job is to make money.
So just before I cut him, he said, our job is to make money. He said, I don't care what they're doing, whether they want to fix economy or not. I do not care about those kinds of things. Now, he's talking about not caring about how to make economy better because he's there to make money. But to make money, something good has to happen, right? Like if I tell you this house is burning down, your first thought is not going to be, well, that's good, you know? If I ask you how we're going to extinguish the fire and save the business and house and shops, your first thought is, yeah, right. If that does not burn, it will be good. We can go back in doing business. But his thought is, that's all right. I mean, I don't care. I don't want to know how you can how you're going to fix the fires, and because my job is to make money. How are you going to make money from my house burning down, economy burning down? So something already you can see that this guy does not make money from reality, from economy.
Care that much how they're going to fix the economy, how they're going to fix the whole situation. Our job is to make money from it. And personally, I've been dreaming of this moment for 3 years. I have a confession, which is I go to bed every night, I dream of another recession. I dream of...
So you are not only profiting from economy going down, you dream of these kind of moments.
Another moment like this. Why? Because people don't seem to maybe remember, but the 30s depression, the depression in the 30s, wasn't just about a market crash. There were some people who were prepared to make money from that crash. And
so obviously, whoever is listening this at this point in time is thinking like, hang on a minute, you're telling me that you're going to make money from this recession and market going down. That doesn't make sense. And then to justify himself, he's saying, if you remember in 1930s when we have a major depression, the entire world was collapsing, economy, poverty. He said, what we should remember from that time is that some other people made money from that. Does that make sense to you, what you're hearing?
I think anybody can do that. It isn't just for some people in the elite. Anybody can actually make money. It's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity. So the economy is burning down. Everything is collapsing. He dreams about this moment. And actually it's opportunity. Anybody can make money. Does that make sense? How can that be? Does this remind you of the world you live in?
No.
If this neighborhood burned down with the shops and the schools and everything, is that opportunity that everybody can now start making money?
When the market crashes, when the euro and the big stock markets crash, if you know what to do, if you have the right plan to set up, you can make a lot of money from this.
If the market crash and you know what to do and you have a plan set up, you benefit. Okay, all right, that's interesting, isn't it?
For example, hedging strategies is one. Then investing in bonds, treasury bonds, that sort of stuff.
If you could see the people around me, jaws have collectively dropped at what you've just said. I mean, we appreciate your candour, however, it doesn't help the rest of us, does it, or the rest of the Eurozone?
I would say this, listen.
You see she's in shock. She's in shock because, first of all, from her shock, you see that she doesn't understand who she invited. She invited shark. So this man, he's a trader, meaning day trader, or this is what we call in the market speculators. These are the people who can profit from any market conditions. Economy going up, they profit. Economy going down, they profit. So for him, doesn't matter economy. He finds way to profit. And she cannot understand that. She's confusing him for investor who is buying the stock and benefiting from the good things that the company is doing. So let's see what he said next.
I would say this to everybody who's watching this. This economic crisis is like a cancer. If you just wait and wait thinking this is going to go away, just like a cancer, it's going to grow and it's going to be too late. What I would say to everybody is...
So he's dreaming of this, but it's like a cancer from which he profits. All right, and now he's telling us advice what to do. So we can all profit from this cancer on our society.
Get prepared. This is not a time right now to wishful thinking the government is going to sort things out. The governments don't rule the world. Goldman Sachs rules the world.
That's true. Actually.
Goldman Sachs does not care about this rescue package, neither does the big funds.
Goldman Sachs rule the world. This is the banks. So you have people and their economy and real business on one side, and the government trying to help them, and who you have on the other side? The big banks, who rule the world. And he said its markets are ruled by fear. So you have them ruling the world by fear, and they have an instrument to profit from that going down. Does that look to you like society that is in sync, where the incentives are aligning?
No, it doesn't.
It looks to me like incentives are totally reverse, where these people loss is this other people gain.
Actually, what I would actually tell people, I want to help people. People can make money from this. It isn't just traders. What they need to do is learn about how to make money from a downward market.
So when market is going down, when people are losing investment, stock price is going down, people need to learn how to make money from that. How do you make money from that? How do you make money from what you have losing value? There is no way. There is no way in a normal economy, in a normal life to make money from that. So strategy and everything that is, and we'll talk about what that exactly is something that cannot be, just without knowing anything, that cannot be connected with real life.
First thing people should do is protect their assets, protect what they have. Because in less than 12 months, my prediction is that savings of millions of people is going to vanish. And this is just the beginning.
Savings going to vanish. It is a cancer. but he dreaming about it and he can profit and he doesn't care about all of that. I mean, what kind of society are we creating? You see, when you're talking about incentives to make money, when money become only about numerical growth and you don't have any ethical and other restraints to make money, you find a clever way. He is not a dummy. He's not a stupid guy. But he figured out a way to profit from other people's misery and collapse.
So I would say be prepared and act now. The biggest risk people can take right now is not acting.
Alessia Rastani, thank you very much for talking to us.
Do you dream about the economy at night?
I try not to.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that he was talking was particular instrument there, short selling. And that is the mechanism by which you profit from actually something falling in value. What is interesting is that during this pandemic, when the market crashed due to the COVID-19, you had the same short sellers doing exactly the same thing. Market crashed by almost 50%, for instance, in US. And so Market Insider website quoted S3 partners, and they say that US short sellers profited nearly $344 billion from the market's February 19 peak to March 19. That's the time when US market, due to the pandemic, crushed 50%. Meaning, if you had a pension or investment in the stock market, in the businesses, you lost half of your investments. However, during that massive crash in those 4 weeks, some people listening that advice were prepared, were dreaming of it. They were able to short sell, and they made hundreds of billions of dollars. So now, what is the short selling, let's say? So short selling is the way by which you make money from price of something going down. Let me give you an example, very quick example. Let's say there is a company. Let's say call it company A. And the shares of that company are traded at the moment $10 a share. I go to someone who owns these shares and I borrow the share. So I borrow a share for $1. I borrow it for, let's say, 2 weeks. Then what I do, I sell it for the current price, which is $10. I used $1 to borrow the share, and then now I get $10 from the share itself. If I correctly predicted the market movements and that shares drop to $5, so I go to that market again, I buy the share for $5, and then I return it to the original owner. So you see what happened here? So I borrow it for $1, sold it for 10. When the price went down, I got it back cheap, and then I return. What is the net impact of this?
$4.
Is $4. Original investment is 1, and I got 4. That's a 400% profit from something within 2 weeks. Now think about that. That stock by itself, if it was, let's say, a normal year, maybe return 10%, 15% for the whole year. Here I'm making hundreds of percent by correctly guessing the price movement. So this is what it is. In Islam, this would be prohibited because a first transaction where I borrow something and then I sold. So I'm selling something that I don't have ownership of. That would be the immediate prohibition that would eliminate that whole way of transacting. Yeah. Somebody will say, but why don't you then, instead of borrowing, buy it and do the same thing? Because you wouldn't profit. See, once you buy it and the price drops, you lose that. Okay, so you cannot leverage that anymore. So the only way you can profit from this is if you disconnect your ownership. If you are not owner, but you can do this little trick. So when the global financial crisis happened, this was one of the things that was driving the markets down. It was particularly dangerous for the bank because when you drive their price down, it increased their cost of borrowing. So it's very dangerous to the banks. So they usually would regulate something around the banks to protect them. And this is a phenomenon known as zero-sum game, where you have a situation where one person's gain is equivalent to another loss. So net profit on the economy is really zero. So here we see that short selling original idea was in reality to burst the overpriced stocks. But as you can see, with incentives, without proper restriction, you create it into the different kind of ball game. We see this not just in short selling, futures and options that are traded, very similar sort of casino type transactions where two parties are simply betting. Forex is another one of those casino type products. So the idea is that I buy some dollars, let's say US dollars, exchange them for Australian dollars, and then when the price is favorable, I'll make some money, and that's fine, they say. But here you have a very similar situation where the profit is disconnected from real economic activities. And I'll give you an example. Let's say in a Forex, trading money for money, you have movements which are very small. They calculate them in a small pips. These are 0.0001 decimal point. It's a 100th of 1%. You have a person who puts, I don't know, a couple of $1,000, for example. And the market moves by 0.1 or even 0.1 is massive movement. But let's say for argument's sake, 1%. People who make 10%, 20%, 200%, 500% from that move. Does that make sense?
No.
I mean, if you had $100 in your pocket, market move 1%, you gain 1% on exchange rate, you know.
Yeah.
How do you make 500% or 100% or 50% from that move of 1%? Again, same idea. It doesn't come from a real economy anymore. You are doing some other thing, something that disconnects reality from that money. Okay? In the same way, if market go negative 1% against you, goes against you, you lose entire $100 maybe. So hang on a minute, but if you really had $100 in your pocket, value would be 1% down. How do you lose 100%? In what industry can you put 100 and without anything real, market is moving by 1%, reality is moving by 1%, but you are going thousands of percent or losing 100%. That's only in casino. Okay, that's the only other industry where you can so quickly, within half an hour or one day, move so radically up and down. And how they do this here is that you are again not taking ownership of the money. Just like in short sale, you're not taking ownership of the stock. In Forex, you're not taking ownership of the money. You are just buying a position which is on the margin. Fraction, you are leveraging it. In reality, you are just betting. Fraction, you put $1,000 on $1 million worth of so-called money. So you are just taking a fraction. You are gambling on the price movement. If you are right, you leverage it up or down. Your loss or gain is opposite of other person. If me and you are on opposing side in that transaction, I'm saying market's going to go up 1%, you're saying it will go down %. We take opposite. One is, let's say, short position going down, one is long going up. So we have opposite bets. So whoever is right, he'll pick up that money. And the way it works is, again, not taking full ownership of the money. If you bought a whole $1 million, that market movement wouldn't affect you, wouldn't be worth. And that's, again, violating Islamic prohibition that says that when you're exchanging money for money, must be hand-to-hand in full. You cannot exchange portion of money. Must be exchanged in full. But because, again, there are no rules, we have again find a way where it's a zero-sum game. My gain comes from 100% of your loss. And whatever I lose, that's exactly equivalent to your gain. No benefit to economy or anybody else. It's just between me and you, we are guessing something. If you look at riba then, where entire banking and finance is making out of money. Money is giving birth and growing financially only. No links anymore with real economy. That's the core riba mentality, that growth of money without link. Now, this financial economy that is growing by itself is now, some say, 20 or 30 times more than everything else we produce on the planet Earth. So think of it, if that was like a tumor that by itself grows, where that financial economy will continue and find more return on this money. If the whole world is just a fraction of that, you cannot anymore extract the profit from the real world. You need to continue to create more creative financial ways to make more fake products to register more numeric growth. And that has to be even more disconnected from economy. So think of this as a tumor on the body. You have a host body, which is planet Earth, and there is a tumor which is 20 times in size. It's sitting on top of your economy. How does that body work and function? If you don't remove that tumor, it will kill the body. It will suck the entire life from it. Now, to keep this bubble going, unfortunately, we create even bigger and more complex financial instruments to pay these larger bonuses to clever bankers who come up with them. This is exactly what we have now these days perfected, a self-inflating bubble economy. We go now to the normal markets and we found a way to make fake transactions and fake money from everything collapsing. Then we go into the real market and we find a way to gamble even with the real things, real shares, real businesses, and everything else. We create a market to get to the money, to make it easy to invest in companies, focus on real things. But now these bankers come up with techniques, high frequency trading, where they have these algorithms that rather than invest in companies and do what market's supposed to be doing, they find a way to speculate and again bet on the price movement by itself. So you have a high frequency algorithm that buys and sells these real things in nanoseconds, hundreds of thousands in a minute. And they are now like half of the whole trades or maybe more, these algorithms that are betting on the market. And people don't know what's anymore going on, because regardless of what these companies are doing, they find a way through betting to make money from that. The GFC examples where irresponsible lending led bankers to package worse performing subprime loans into the derivative CDOs and made profit again from packaging interest loans, selling them, securitizing them, and then taking again short position and insurance to benefit when they collapse. All this created situation where we are taking financial transactions that are disconnected from reality to make money, and then we're going to the market where real things are happening and we're making casino out of it. And then on top of that, they were caught rigging even their own LIBOR rates, their own, that time, the major bank rates. They were rigging it in order to gain advantage over others when they were speculating on money or other things. When people are looking at this zero-sum game capitalism, where politics, economy have different rules for big players, when incentives to make money are moving away from real economy, where the smart people are now thinking of these new ways to make money from fake things, people look nervous because this is now spilling into other areas of life. Because they make so much profit from these fake transactions, they want to have the same profit from your regular food, manufacturing and other things. How do you do that? You can certainly not do it by producing the wholesome food, for example. If these bankers and others invest in the food or anything, and they come with that appetite, they can't wait that the farmer makes proper milk or a bread, wheat, grow wheat and make a proper food for you. They will just say, okay, let's find the fake way that this product looks like a real thing, and we sell it. In Australia, a few years ago, we had them mixing water in milk, for example. The other day, didn't we eat that almond cake your mother brought? And then one of your sisters, she said, but there is no almonds here. It's just the brand is called almond something. And I thought when I ate it, I said, doesn't look like there's any almonds here. Like, why is it called almond cookie or something? And she said, well, there's no almonds, just like something else. So they put a brand name is called, or a title is called almond, big letters. Inside, no almonds. Inside is some chemicals, sugar, stuff, colors. So the aim is here, if I do the right thing, I can only make 5, 10, 20%. But if I put the fake stuff that look real, I'll make 50, 100% in line with those other expectations. So now this is filtering this lazy mentality, this way of making money from fake things that does not care about real economy. This mentality that dreams of making money even when you're going down, when your economy and life is going down. This same mentality is coming into all areas, your clothes, your food, everything that you are using. People are getting very, very concerned. And these businesses, as they become more powerful as government, concentration of power and monopoly almost creates soft totalitarianism, where ethics and rules are correlated with those in power. So you have no rules to protect participants, no ethics to tell you what is halal and haram, and you can now freely, driven by incentive, profit from other misfortune. In fact, this win-lose offers more incentives and moves more smart people and attracts them to this kind of work. And what will that do in terms of a real economy? When you have a casino economy that drives incentives, it will attract talents. Winning will continue to be unfair and at the detriment of the society. And therefore, winning in the real economy will be disincentivized. There will be limited incentives to do the right thing because you just cannot match those returns that people are making in fake and financial economy any longer. But in this capitalistic society, who will tell people what is just and fair? If there is no God, no religion, if there are no believers to honor what is permissible way of dealing with each other, what is if there is no system to tells you make money from this, compete there, don't go into these areas. If you want to make money, make it from profiting on the back of win-win situation, where the net profit is good for you, good for the other person. Make money from benefiting people. Don't make money from freedom to manipulate, deceive, and con people into something that doesn't make any sense, that this is disconnected, where you start now dreaming of another recession. That's why we see that when Uthman radiallahu anhu used to bring the caravans of food and stocks in Medina, and people ask him to sell them at twice the profit, 3 times, 5 times. He said, no, I know somebody who will give more. And then he give it as a charity. Because he know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives and reward more. So when you don't have that calculation in your mind as a believer, that there is other incentive related to the afterlife, and that doesn't drive your ethics and doesn't ground you in a real economy, this is where the problem of capitalism is. It misses this point that unrestricted incentives and freedom at the end find a way towards something that is exploitative, that can make that same profit, but from much less work and being disconnected from the real thing. In summary, idea in profit should be to profit only from for-profit activities, not from harming others or from creating fake benefit that is cheating, gambling, and unproductive. It moves focus towards non-beneficial activity that in long run will harm that same economy and people. And nobody will be incentivized to work on the real economy. Once it reaches that moment, we come to the where socialism and communism fail, where you lose the incentives to work with the real economy. So both unrestricted and unethical way of making money, leads you to the same destination that communism leads you, which is to remove incentives from you to work in a real economy. So at the end of the day, if you remember the golden goose story, you killed that golden goose. Both of the system choke the golden goose. And that will be the death of a system. How does that sound to you in terms of when you hear something like that?
Makes you realize that neither communism nor capitalism is a good answer.
Absolutely. And
Just see it as so like both of them are so bleak, and they're just like, oh, okay, never mind.
Both of them forget people at the end of the day. One forgets the nature of the human in terms of incentives and stuff. Another forgets a spirituality, human part of the human beings. And that's why when you hear talk about materialism and the glorification of just money and things like that, this is where it comes from. And so it's very difficult that you will solve it just by saying to the people, be nice and trickle down, as we said. Because these people, if they are dreaming to profit from your disaster, you think something will trickle down from them, it's very difficult. They are trying to suck, as you are falling down, suck your blood as well at the same time as you are falling down. So this is why you cannot trust somebody without solid foundation and ethics and beliefs. Only way, reality, what balances these things is people need to be people of ethics. There needs to be regulation. And what is the best regulation is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the sunnah of his Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam to guide us. As the Mufti Taqi Usmani said, today we are only thinking our brain can come up with these solutions and economic incentives and how to put a structure together. Why shouldn't we make money from money? What's wrong in... Well, you see, that's a core of all of these fictional ways of making money. So when Islam prohibits these things and call this a war against Allah and His Prophet, it's not a simple matter. Because once you start building this system on those foundations where you can suck the blood of people, then you create a system that is totally divorced from real life. And this is what Islam doesn't want to see. Anything from you for the end before I finish?
Looking forward to knowing what the solution will be then.
All right. Inshallah, next time we will talk about solutions. We also mentioned 3 principles of Islamic economy in one of our episodes. So if you have a chance, listen to that as well. And inshallah, looking forward to hear you and see you next week. From all of us, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.